Welcome everyone for the Love of Health web show, an exciting bi-weekly live stream where I am bringing y'all guests of some real impact. We have really kicked off our season in such an amazing way. We are here with the incredible Lisa Ganora, and I'm a little bit intimidated by this interview because Lisa Ganora has always been kind of on the shelf for me of kind of like, okay, like she's done it, like these books of phytochemistry are what everybody says. Like, have you seen this book? Have you seen this book? Have you heard of Lisa Ganora? Oh, I really have, Lisa Ganora, Lisa Ganora. I'm like, who is this woman? So I reach out, and I mean, Lisa is just so sweet, but also so steadfast and determined to not just do one book, but do many books. I mean, and just surround herself with other people who also are just super excited about herbs and plants. So welcome, Lisa. We are so glad.
Thank
And I'll give
you.
it also like a more, let's give you a little bit more of a actual, bio here. So Lisa
Right.
is a regular speaker at the world's, most prestigious herb conferences, definitely national conferences. This year, she's had a full season. She's been studying and practicing herbal medicine since 1985. Okay, so she's been in this for quite some time,
Oof,
and
I
she
know.
founded the she founded the Colorado School of Clinical
While
Herbalism.
back.
Hello,
Sorry, I was
yeah.
having a moment with 1985 there. I'm like, okay.
So she's kept vital and strong by her herbs, okay, and
Yeah.
she's from the lineage of Paul Bergner. So and she's out in Colorado, and that's just the stronghold and strong hamlets there and strong communities and schools there now that have been there for years and years and years. And so that textbook we were talking about, which everyone's like, I want that textbook, or they're using their AI, tell me about Lisa Ganora, and AI will tell you that artificial intelligence will tell you Lisa Ganora is known for the book Herbal Constituents, okay, and Herbal Constituents is the book on phytochemistry. So the plants and the chemicals in plants, okay? And then breaking that down further, how that chemistry works in our human bodies.
Chemicals.
We're going to get Lisa's input on this because she can explain this better than me. And we'll be giving you guys a special little preview at a course to get started in that lens of getting to know plants in this way at the end of the interview. All right, Lisa, why should we focus on chemistry when we are learning or interested in learning herbalism or how plants work for our bodies for health?
Right. Well, something I like to point out is that like a lot of us have a little allergic to chemistry, right? Because the way that it's taught in schools is makes it harder and it makes it abstract. It takes it out of the real world and puts it into a bunch of equations and you're like, okay, if you like math and equations, that's fine. But when we think about phytochemicals, we have to realize this is something plants are making. Like we didn't come up with this in a laboratory. We didn't invent it. It's something plants are actually making on purpose, right? And when we start to think about it as something the plant is doing, then it's more like a living dynamic thing, right? It's the way a plant is expressing its physical presence on the planet. And I started out as a wise woman tradition herbalist, plant spirit medicine, right? Communicating with plants. And I get plants on that level, but I'm also a science nerd. And so when I look inside and I see, I'm like, oh, phytochemicals, what are these things really? This is not what I learned in college. What's going on here? What's going on inside that plant? And a plant has hundreds, if not thousands, of interacting, cooperating phytochemicals, which here's my definition of them. And this is a long explanation to your answer. But my definition of them is that they are patterns of energy, right? This is what a phytochemical is. It's a pattern of energy. It has a structure. It has a shape. It's like molecular structure, right? It's a pattern of energy. And atoms and molecules are mostly energy. They're vibratory things. They have a little tiny bit of matter, but they're mostly energy. So what is a pattern of energy? It's a signal, right? So the radio, the television, the internet, why we can see and do what we're doing right now is because there are signals and they're patterns of energy. right? So patterns of energy communicate. They communicate and they have information and they have agency. They can do things, right? So a plant is creating this complex interwoven web of these signals, these patterns of energy, phytochemicals, right? That carry information into us, right? Into our bodies, which are also made of biochemicals. And there's this communication and this crosstalk going on between the patterns of energy in plants. We ingest them, we eat them, we make tinctures, whatever, we bring it in. And our body reads those signals. Our cells read those signals through receptors and also the nervous system. And it and the signal is they call it signal transduction in science, right? The signal is received by our cellular antennas, which are called receptors, and the cell shifts what it's doing because of that, right? So all of our
That's
systems.
so incredible. You explained
I
that. I'm sorry. I
know.
mean, I could go on forever. Yes, it's going to be that kind of interview, everybody, where your minds are blown, and we're taking you to a whole other dimension here of
Yeah,
well-being.
yeah. Well. This is part of the answer to why should I study phytochemistry, right? So, but when you look at it from that perspective, you can see that like plants are these master genius pharmacists that have created this web of communication. And when we receive that communication into our body, our cells, our tissues, our organs interpret it, and then they change. And we call that actions, and we call that energetics in herbalism, right? And
Yeah.
it's a communication that goes on between me and the plant. So it's a communication, it's a cellular level communication between me and the plant. Okay. So to bring that forward into the realm of practicality, number one, studying this stuff is a way to understand what the plant is actually doing and how I'm actually responding to the plant as a person that takes that plant medicine. And it shows you also the individuality of response, because remember when you first started learning herbalism and it's like, what does this plant do? What is this plant for? you know, what is the actions and the energetics, or maybe just the actions of this plant? And that's only half of the relationship. The other half is the person who's taking the medicine, right?
Yeah. No, I think you explained that so well because you're just throwing out the scientific model in a way, but also explaining it because science is also always validating these things all the time. And
Hmm.
the energy perspective of the plant's innate intelligence, and then of course from there, like bees innate intelligence and how they're in that, and the pollinator energetic dance with plants as well, and this
Yeah,
vibrational
100%. And the
vibration,
microbiome, I mean,
right,
plants have their own
right.
microbiome, and so do we. And that's a whole nother level of interaction that's going on. And in vitalist herbalism, they say that it's the life energy flows through every living thing and connects us all. Right. And you can go, oh, you can also go, and the microbiome flows between plants and humans and connects us all, or the molecular traffic or the molecular flow between the plant and the human. So I see it as a very interconnected system. And science is a set of tools for discovery. That's what science is. So you can use that set of tools for discovery to discover whatever. And I think most scientists are comfortable with a certain level of like pushing the envelope of that. And then there are weirdos like me who really like to be like, okay, I can take my scientific tools, and I can look into something like that complex relationship that a human has with a plant and start understanding how phytochemicals are part of that. So
No,
that's.
I think it's really smart to be that experiential, raw,
Mhm.
and organic in the approach, not just so formulaic or like, these are how these elements combine to make this thing. It's more, it's living. I mean,
It's lit.
and what came to my mind when you were saying, the plants in their environments too, right? Like they create certain concentrations of things because of how they're defending themselves in their environment or how they're adapting in their environment. So can you speak to that
Constantly,
for a
right? Because think about a plant, right? It's sitting out there. If the sun is hot, what does it do? It doesn't pop up and not, it doesn't go get in the shade. It has to deal with its environment. Grasshopper comes along. What does it do? You know, a plant virus comes along. It invents these patterns of signals to like deal
Yes.
with whatever's happening, you know, and there's such a fundamental connection. You think we're really different from plants, but when you look into like the biochemistry and the phytochemistry of it, we're really not that different, except chlorophyll. You know, so when a plant makes an antioxidant, say for itself to protect itself from super hot ultraviolet sunlight, that antioxidant can have similar properties for us, and it can protect our skin against ultraviolet damage. You know, so and we have enough in common that what a plant comes up with can do in a lot of cases similar things for us as a living system.
And do you work or do you have a preference for like when you work with plants, how long it's been, like if it's alive, if it's still in a garden, a particular garden or area? Like, I mean, what is that kind of that process for you when you're going to either use a plant or harvest a plant? Like, are you
Mhm.
looking for that vitalism or does it matter for you?
Well, I've made some really effective and delicious herbal products from dried herbs. So that's I think those signals survive the drying process, but like you have to think, you know, there's nothing in nature that's either or, right? There's not like A versus B. That's a human thought pattern. So everything is a spectrum, right? So if I want to make, say, a percolated tincture out of an herb, I'm going to use a dried herb because it works with that process. Or if it's winter and I really want to do something, I'm going to use a dried herb because it's winter. And I mean, our ancestors have done that for generations. We all had the herbs drying, hanging, and you know, in the top of the cabin, etc. So we know they work, right? So I think it's, you know, here's a way to think about it. What about a book? If someone is standing there telling you a story and they're living and they're like a storyteller and you're like, ooh, is this a story? But that story can also be put into a book and you can read it. And so that book is like a dried herb, right? It's still there. The signal is still there. The structure, the plot, it's all still there. Maybe it's not quite as exciting as having, you know, the living storyteller, but sometimes I use fresh plants because I think they work better for certain purposes with certain medicine making processes. But a lot of times I'll use dried ones too. I learned, here's a good example. When I learned wise woman tradition, they were like fresh herbs only for tinctures. You get the life power in there. And I rolled with that for a long time. And then, you know, I started like trying tinctures that were made from dried herbs, and they were awesome also. And I'm like, okay, they're
Well, they can
different,
be,
but
yeah. I'm not surprised that you're very fair and balanced about that. We've discussed this before. I mean, we've talked before, and you have a very fair and
mhm,
balanced approach, and so
yeah,
that's really smart. And also very resourceful. So that's really smart, and thank you for
yeah.
answering that. So, a lot of the questions that we talked about in preparation for this conversation, I see, is a lot to do with like how you view community and community herbalism. And I guess this kind of answers this other question I have about like what
Mm,
future do you envision for herbs? And I see that you have
mm.
founded schools, herbal education centers, and now you lead an online community for advanced herbal studies called Phytosapiens, which is great. I
Mhm.
like that name. And
That's
you
my
teach your
friend Trace. That was our inspiration. Thanks.
yes, and I really appreciate your forwardness in helping other herbalists in this way, where the role of communities like that one, which I guess I
Mhm.
imagine they're hybrid and or mostly virtual. So, what, how do you see the role of these types of communities shaping the next generation of herbalists, herbal people, and
Yeah.
phytosapiens?
You know, it's really interesting to have the perspective I have. So, like, how many years? And quick, calculate how many years ago was that? 1985? Was that what?
Well, I'm dating myself
35
too, so
years ago? Like watching the development of herbalism in the United States, because it's not the same, obviously, all over the world. There's all kinds of herbal practices, but watching it go from like this just do it yourself, basic processes, things everybody can do, kind of a rebel, you know, back to the land, hippies, doing herbs, to how it's moving into the mainstream over the last, several decades. It's really, really interesting. And I think it's part of this awakening awareness that we are part of nature and we need to have our relationships reestablished with the plants specifically in this case. And it seems like there's a people, we got as a culture, we got, and so it's part of the culture is not monolithic, but we got so far away from our roots of having plants and plant medicine be part of our daily lives, right? It's just something everybody did. You went outside, you picked some dandelion greens, you sauteed them, this was normal for everybody was an herbalist. Every, householder, every mother like knew something about herbs, right? And we've gotten so far away from that. And I think people miss it and they don't even know they miss it, you know? But that's awakening now, and people are like, oh, relationship with plants, and then you hear somebody amazing like Robin Wall Kimmerer going, plants are our elders. We need to come back into right relationship with them and respect them and understand their powers and like tend them and take care of them, and bring them back into our daily life. And I think our culture is really like developing in that direction because when we do it, when we feel that, when we experience it, that missing piece is like, oh, and that excitement comes back, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm an herbalist. I remember when this happened to me because I was raised nerdy, academic. If they didn't teach you, they teach you the truth in college, like, and that's the only truth, and when the first time I went to a gathering with herbalists, it completely changed my worldview. It just broke it open, and it was like, what is this? I'm so intrigued. And a little bit later, I was like, maybe I'm an herbalist because I was in my 20s. I was trying to figure myself out. Right? What am I? An artist, a musician? Like, what am I? A navigator. I used to sail boats. I mean, but when I got there, it was just like, this is it. This is your calling. And I just knew it. And I think a lot of people experience that when they come to herbalism. They're like, this is the missing piece, right? And
Well, I
that's
think you're also
spreading.
I think you're very incredible, Lisa. I mean, you're still very active. I mean, your schedule is tight. You just getting together for this interview, you'd email me back and say, well, no, I'm at this conference, or no, I'm being videoed for this. And what did you
Yeah.
say? You're not writing one but two books this year?
Yeah, yes. With a little help from
Yes.
my AI friend. Yeah.
That's what I
And
mean.
get
You're
and
smart.
special ed. What?
You're
Sorry?
smart, and
Yeah,
you're
I was just born nerdy. I mean, that's like I accepted that one. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And but I'm so enthusiastic and I'm so passionate about herbs and like the deep mysteries, which I consider phytochemistry to be like the mystery behind the curtain. Like, why is this happening? Right?
right.
It's just so fascinating and it never runs out. There's constant discovery. I'm just learning stuff all the time. I'm like, how did I get to be 65 and not know that one? And so it's really, really fun. And plus, I'm really nerdy. So I can't get enough of it.
Yeah. No,
And-
your passion and your conviction are evident. So, and then
yeah.
tell us all those books. What books are developing? What's going on? What can we
Okay,
look for?
so this is so I used to run the herb school and we had fundamentals and we had advanced and then we had clinic. And they're still doing that. I sold it. Someone else is running it. So when I taught a bunch of people in fundamentals and advanced and in clinic, and then I was like, okay, where do we go from here? And part of where I'm going with what I'm writing is I want to bring this out using a language that medical professionals can understand and also people who are really interested in science and they kind of get sciences and they're like, well, I thought herbalism was old wives' tales. And it's like old wives have the best tales. um, but to just bring it into like the mainstream, more into the culture, and also to bring it forward to help healers and practitioners help their clients and patients who are using herbs for multiple reasons. And that's happening more and more and more. The majority of people in America now use dietary supplements, which is FDA speak for herbal products, vitamins, minerals, etc. Right? The majority of people in America are using them, and sometimes also more conventional medicines. Right? And I'm like, so where is the practitioner who understands both? You know, because sometimes the conventional approach is required and sometimes the botanical approach is better. So I'm interested in helping clinical herbalists and also medical professionals who want to understand clinical herbalism, right? How plants work, and also the hands-on aspect, because everybody loves making medicine, right? And like my favorite, this is a physician, like 20 times nerdier than me, just an amazing person. What does he do for fun? He has an herb lab and he just makes crazy herbal products in it, right? But he's like thoroughly scientifically trained in medicine, blah, blah, blah. And he does that for fun. And everybody from the day one herbalist, like, oh, I made this, you know? So I think this is part of the answer to previous question. I think it's important to understand the phytochemistry because that teaches you what are you doing when you're making tea or making a tincture or making a salve, you know, or making an oxymel with honey and vinegar. It's like, okay, you learn it by a recipe, you follow the rest, somebody's recipe that they worked out, right? And it's awesome. Or maybe you're like, but I want it to be sweeter or more sour or redder or whatever. And when you learn the phytochemistry, and I call it process-based medicine making, right? You learn like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Can I experiment with that method and make it better? That's why I call some of my courses Make Better Medicine, right? So it's, you know, understanding what's going on with the phytochemicals helps you to be able to make better medicine too. And it's here's
No, yeah, you explained that so well. It's and
yeah.
you're breaking it down so well for the beginner too, because that's definitely what it would be. It would
Mhm.
be just, yeah, how does this work and how is this even turning into what it is? Because there is such a confidence thing that has to happen from that action
Mhm.
taking. So I'm sure there's so many ways that you've helped them do that. Let's just
Yeah,
maybe we can finish today with
100%.
like a little like actual medicine making thing. So the thing that came to my head too earlier in the conversation was the whole dual extraction of mushrooms, which mushrooms comes to a lot of people get really scared of mushrooms and for a lot of good reasons. It is kind of foreign at this point. Just like you were saying earlier, people used to work with plants. We used to forage mushrooms like
Yeah,
confidently. And
yeah.
now we just don't anymore. And you know, mushrooms are this kind of this area for people like, well, I don't really know why it's good, but I know I've heard it's good, which all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rap,
yeah.
it's, you know, the dual extraction is a fascinating home chemistry
Isn't it?
experiment.
Mhm.
And so I learned that one from Juliet Blanketsport from her Chestnut School program initially, where, you know, you want to create a tea, right, for the polysaccharides of the medicinal mushrooms, specifically maitake
Right?
mushroom, was
Like
it
a
grind?
decoction.
Yeah,
A
shiitake,
decoction, a really
blood,
strong, long tea. Yeah.
reishi, right? But then you can't make a tincture of it exactly, but you have to preserve the tea with alcohol, but you can't upset that percentage. Do you want to give a
Yeah.
little
You know
clarity
what?
as to,
There's a lot of different ways to do that.
yeah,
You
I'm
can
sure.
make a tincture of it too.
Yeah, for the terpenes, right? Or the
Yeah,
varnish.
triterpenes. Like if you talk about reishi, so reishi is the one I have the most experience with, or reishi, Ganoderma, right? It's got two big medicines in it. It's got a group of constituents called triterpenes, and like, oh, I used to
You
have
have one
this
behind you. Yeah, there he is.
this
Oh,
shiny stuff. That's
yeah.
that you're seeing the triterpenes. They call it reishi varnish. It looks kind of like varnish, right?
So
And
beautiful.
those do not come out very, they come out a little bit in hot water. If you do it, if you design your process to it. Traditional Chinese medicine, how did they extract these? This is where we learned about these, right? From traditional Chinese medicine. They boiled, they made a strong decoction for a long time. And when you do it that way and taste it, it's bitter. And you know you've gotten triterpenes because they're bitter, right? So they would, but at the same time, that's hot water. So when you look at this part, it's like, oh, it's so smooth. It's like this matte finish. You're seeing polysaccharides here, right? And they come out really well in hot water. So that traditional way that they work out, they get a lot of polysaccharides, they chunk it up and grind it up first or whatever, and they get a little bit of triterpenes, right? But if you tincture it and you use higher percentage ethanol, I think we do ours at 70%, you know, you get more triterpenes, right? And in the tincture, you get almost no polysaccharides. So the double extraction thing is like, oh, so let's decoct and let's tincture, and then let's do a little math and figure out what the final ethanol or alcohol percent is when we mix those two together. Yeah. So you don't have to even do it with a mathing part. You can just do it, But if you want to be like, oh, I want to end up with 25% ethanol in my final product because I want it to preserve and not go bad because you need 25%, then you can do some calculations and make sure you end up that way. You do the right proportions of tincture to decoction, right? But there's so many different ways to do a double extraction. It's interesting. Like some people will take the same plant material and first they'll tincture it and then they'll take it and decoct it. And some people do it the other way around. And some people take fresh material for a decoction and fresh material for a tincture and do it separately. So there's not just one way to do anything. You can
Yeah.
experiment.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
herbalism aspect is that willingness to find your unique process and to
Mhm.
not just rely on that initial way of taking herbs. What is this good for? It's supposed to do that. It's allowing
Mhm.
yourself to create that process. Thank you so much,
Right.
Lisa. Is
Yeah.
there anything else that you want people to know about you going forward? And yeah,
Yeah.
we love this conversation and we can't wait to share it all
Yeah.
around to all the
I
people.
I think, reconnecting people and plants on a deep level is really, really important to me because I see plants as elders. Plants are my elders. And scientifically and evolutionarily speaking, they were here first. We came along later. They've got several 100 million years on us,
Right.
of development. Um, and they have a wisdom. And people used to know how to communicate with plants routinely, whether that's through, meditation and listening and connecting to the plant spirit, or through, tasting something and understanding what that flavor means. Was it medicine? Was it food? Is it poison? Is it good for me? Like that, like a lot of animals still do. You can learn how to do that. It's called organoleptics, right? You can learn to taste molecules. You can taste phytochemicals. You can see them. You can smell them. You can feel them. You can have a sensory relationship with them. And helping people get back into that way of relating to herbs and then having the language to be able to talk about it, I think it's super, super important because it brings us back into relationship. And when we see plants as our elders, we have respect for them, we learn to care for them, and we learn to have good relationship with them. And then we have a healing that happens both for the plants and the plant world and the entire planet. Why is it called a planet? That's so close to plant. And us, you know. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
really well explained, your process and how people can journey to better health through that particular
100%. And
formula.
also empowering too, because when you understand medicine and you have access to these plants, you don't have to go to an expensive expert for your medicine. You're the
Right.
only person who lives, generally speaking, in your own body. All those bacteria count, I guess. Um, when you learn how to listen to the feedback from your body and from your body in relationship with plants, then you become empowered, right? And you
Definitely. Yeah.
understand how to heal yourself
Yeah.
in a lot of
Actually,
cases and take care of
before you
yourself.
leave, Lisa, can you explain, like, because are you in a rural spot in Colorado? Like,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
We're
like
in the
you're not,
we're in the
yeah,
hills.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
right.
little valley called the North Fork Valley, and it's on what we call the western slope of Colorado, like everything west of the big tall mountains. It's a transition zone between the mountains and the Colorado Plateau, which is more deserty. So I'm definitely, yeah,
Yeah. And
out
so do you have
there.
like a little studio? Is that a little school that you're in right there? People can come see you?
It's not a school. I call it an herbal education center here. I wanted to, this is crazy, but
Yeah.
no, I
I
don't know
love
if I can do this. I was going to show you the lab, but this camera keeps focusing on me when I try to move it. But I
oh,
have an
that's
herb lab here. So
right.
it's like my dream happy place where I have all the equipment, and sometimes we have a workshop and we teach classes in here, or
Yep.
sometimes I just make stuff and
Beautiful.
we film for our online classes. We film a lot of stuff in here as well. And then I have about a half-acre herb garden, which is a
Mm.
feral permaculture garden. That's what I started calling it, where I'm experimenting with plant communities and how the plants want to grow and how they want to grow together instead of
Wow.
like you go in rows. It's amazing. I spend quite a bit of time in there at night because it's too hot during the daytime right now. So, and then we're surrounded by wildlands. We're right up on the edge of BLM land. So I can get on my horse and I can go and I can go exploring in the natural areas around here. So it's really, and we have great internet. So I have the whole world right here too, you know?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
pretty good deal for herbalists.
And you have like a whole schedule of events and things that you do. You travel. And do you have like a small team that helps you with your things and your organizing and your business?
Yeah, yeah. So I travel a bit now. I used to travel more, and I'm getting older. It's not as much fun at the airport as it used to be. But I do like to go to like 2 or 3 conferences. It's really fun to connect with people there, and I usually, teach some kind of course or intensive. But I do mostly online stuff these days. Sometimes I go down and teach at the herb school, Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism. They're like, oh, come teach us how to do percolations or some of the advanced classes. I'll still go down and teach a bit down there. But yeah, mostly it's online. My website, herbalconstituents.com, has all kinds of courses, and we have that Phytosapiens membership. Oh, and we're planning a bunch of short courses. We're going to work on that this winter because there's some very in-depth stuff on there right now. There's an herbal constituents intro course for people who are like, this is fascinating. Let me jump in. It's called Herbal Constituents: The Essential Intro, right? And then there's a whole 2 semester, like, let's go to college, whole two
Right.
semester Herbal Constituents course that we do. That's about to start, actually. The registration is happening right now for that. For somebody who's like, and I'll get emails from people. They'll be like, do I need to have a chemistry degree? And I'm like, no, you just need to be fascinated with it, you know.
Yeah.
And little science background doesn't hurt, but it's not strictly required, you know.
Yeah. And your book, I mean, I've seen it, I've heard it, it's always referenced. It's available.
Yeah.
Is it available in other languages besides English?
You
Yeah.
know, not yet.
Okay,
Not
gotcha.
yet. But
I thought I
yeah,
was had that.
future project. Well, you know
Yeah.
how projects are. There's like, I can do it all. And you're like, no, wait, actually, I can't. But yeah, I wrote that book for herbalists who want to learn this stuff because there was nothing like it in existence. And I was frustrated. And I'm like, well, it's not there. I looked everywhere. It was either like super high level PhD level like chemistry stuff that you're like, or it was, people wanting to know about it but not quite getting it. And so I wrote the book, and that's been really fun.
Yeah,
Having
no,
that available.
absolutely. What
Yeah.
would you say is like a most recent, like exciting thing that happened for you when we're working or at a conference or working with another herbalist, something that kind of just got your spirit really excited?
So everything's
Yeah.
reversed. Making this Artemisia tincture was a super interesting experience. Right? I have never made, and this is wormwood, right? Artemisia absinthium. And yes, it's in absinthe. Absinthe is named after it. And absinthe is called the green fairy, right? Hence the green fairy. We were working on some stuff for the Phytosapiens about bitters and bitter herbs. And bitter herbs are like, I'm so into bitters right now. They're fascinating. It's not just flavor. Here's a fact. Bitter receptors, cellular receptors for bitter phytochemicals are in the brain, the nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the central nervous system, the lungs, the respiratory system, the liver, the pancreas, the stomach, the intestines, the muscles, the everything. We have receptors for bitter phytochemicals, the skin, the fingertips,
Wow.
everywhere. And that shows you that there's that co-evolutionary relationship between people and plants. We have
Yeah.
receptors for these things. This has been fairly recently discovered in science, right? So I'm reading all these scientific papers and I'm like, Kat, what's in the garden? Let's make wormwood tincture as part of this phytosapiens thing. So we harvested it and we made instant fresh tincture in the Vitamix method, which is really interesting. That made a color I literally have never seen before. I have
Really?
never seen the color of that tincture before. It was glowing, magical emerald green with red, deep red highlights.
Whoa.
I know
This
we're both looking at it like,
really.
how can we photograph? We need to show this to people. Like, it was really spectacular. And the flavor of it was also like, I could feel it. I could literally feel my consciousness, my nervous system, my brain shift as soon as I took like one drop of it, two drops of it, because I didn't know how strong it was. You know, it's a psychoactive tincture. That too much of it, you know, can be toxic. It's not like it's going to make you trip or something, but it's active. It has activity in your psyche, right? And we both took it and we just stood there looking at each other like, I am so fully present right now. Things look interesting. You know, it was this kind of wake up call. And and encountering that for the first time with that magical glowing greenness and that intense bitterness, but also sweetness and this aromatics of this plant, it just kind of opened another universe door, like open this door and see what universe is behind door number 3, you know.
Well,
And so excited to
I really like you sharing that. I like what
yeah,
that part of this conversation just did for my soul because it reminded me of the first time I made a violet tincture and seeing that the way that the color comes out for the purple and then it changes and the
yeah,
magic, the magic of chemistry. You're right. Like it's such a fascinating process because then what you want
yeah.
to do is go to someone and share. Like, well, did you know
Mhm.
that this happens when you do this with that
I
plant?
know,
I
and
didn't
you're like,
know that.
look.
And so creating that
Yeah,
community around that type of experience, that's brilliant. I love
yeah,
that, Lisa.
yeah,
Lisa,
yeah.
thank you so much. This has been
Oh,
such an
thank
honor to
you.
really talk to you about your process, what you've been doing, how you've been
Mm,
doing it for as long as you've been doing it. It's just such a living practice. And I love it. I
yeah,
love it so much.
it is. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
No, you have a wonderful rest of your summer. Thank you everyone for coming on. I'm going to share the tincture course, the art of the tincturing that I think is just it's a must have if you are interested in making fabulous, not just good,
Mhm.
but fabulous herbal medicine this fall with all of the plants you're
I
growing,
like that.
finding or harvesting. You just got to check out Lisa's course. I'll put it in the comments of this
Yeah,
episode. Thank you everybody. Have a
yeah.
wonderful rest of your night. Happy late summer.